actually living my life? Am I really living my life moment to moment? I don't know. I'm going to wake up on an operating table in a week. I don't even know if I'm going to wake up. What do I do if I have never truthfully expressed myself, to my God, to every person that I love, to my family? If I have carried this secret, which I did, I, like Jen, was built different than any other male kid. I had no innate sense of male culture. I was smaller than all the other kids. I was everything that would have been exceptional probably for a young girl. Extremely sensitive, mature for my age, very, very emotional. Absolutely beat down every day of my life for the first 10 or 12 years of exposure to any pure culture for the fact that I was different. And different in such a way that I couldn't choose it to be different any more than I could blink my eyes and change the sky green if I wanted to. Okay, there's a disconnect. So I think it's very important for people to recognize that, at least for us, this is about our identity in gender as a human being, not sexuality. Sexuality is, as was already said, who we're attracted to. All of us, everyone in this room, whether we were 9 or 10 or 14, innately, automatically, we arrive at and understand who we're attracted to, whether that's other boys, other girls, both, whatever it is. And usually that's not a conscious choice that any of us would make, although some will posit that it has to be based on certain theological or theo-philosophical or social norms and rules. But it seems to be across the board not something that human beings generally choose for themselves. We naturally arrive at where we are. But the two in this case are separate, gender and sexuality. For us, this is my gender as a woman. This is my gender as a female. This is how I've recognized myself since the first moment of conscious awareness. To go through daily public, social, and professional discrimination 365 days a year. This includes ridicule, blatant rudeness, yelled insults, laughter, staring. I have been followed and harassed from a moving vehicle as a pedestrian. I've been followed and harassed while driving a moving vehicle. Loss of work, loss of clients, workplace discrimination and hiring for well more than 3 years, actually probably 4.5 years plus, as a classically trained professional chef, and I'm a serious artist who loves my art. I was essentially forced out of my industry at the beginning of my transition, resulting in several years of unemployment. If it hadn't been for my few high-end personal chef clients and my wife's income, which was questionable at best, whether or not I knew she was going to leave me, I would have already been out in the streets, or worse. Stalking, death threats, attempts to run me off the road while driving, hundreds of virus attack and hate sites listings published on the internet that contain my name in at least 3 different languages, all for no other reason than the fact that I'm different and that I have stood up and spoke about these things and been published in different newspapers and interviews, and am willing to basically out myself to the planet and say, you know, I've dealt with being hated down and discriminated against for being different my whole life. Eventually, you got to say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Where does the word of anything like a religious basis or a theological basis, where does unconditional become unconditional but, right? Unconditional with this exception, because that's so different from what we believe in that it's okay to discriminate, at least in this case, because it so defies the word that we've been taught. Well, the word that I know of is unconditional love, and the word unconditional means pretty much no exceptions. Golden rule stuff that seems to be harder and harder to find. Discrimination by my own health insurance company on the change of gender, the inability to afford any aspect of medical completion of my change for a long period of time due to these sorts of things. Even though my wife and I are still legally married, I'll be forced to accept domestic partner status. I'm still actually debating this and fighting this with my insurance company and building ammo. Even though I'm the same person that married my wife more than 10 years ago, I will be forced to, once I make the documentary change all the way back to my birth certificate, to change, I'll have to accept a change in status in terms of my partnership. Why? Why? Even the slightest reduction in the comfort of the benefits I've enjoyed as a legally married person to the woman that I love, my best friend and soulmate in this world. For what? I change. I'm the same person. I might look different, but I'm not different, if that makes any sense. I was actually going to cover some more of this. I don't know how much time we have, another 2-3 minutes maybe? Okay. Just to cover a couple of other things, just in terms of the legislation, some of the things that you may have already heard, some of the things that you will probably hear. This kinds of legislation will open the door for all sorts of predatory and exhibitionist types to endanger our family and our children's safety, blah, 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 blah. It will abuse the sanctity of public and private facilities. We've all heard this. That's all part of what the opposition has thrown into the mix. Well, here's a couple of pieces of food for thought. Any person that has no legitimate reason for being in a place that would be regarded as personal or private immediately risks exposure, ejection, embarrassment, possibly arrest, unless they're able to actually produce a valid reason for being there. Okay? It's unlikely that just because the law is passed, the most predatory of the population, which we've been conflated with somehow, I don't know how, because it just doesn't occur amongst transgender, especially females, clinically known to be very closeted and secretive, primarily heterosexual males, as we all know from any study that's ever been done and anything that's ever been publicized, will suddenly decide to rush to take advantage of these laws and engage in a complete change of modus operandi, okay, and throw on women's clothes and immediately learn to wear makeup and wigs to enact their disgusting offenses, and then dress as the opposite sex, which obviously will exponentially increase the risk of them being publicly caught, exposed, arrested. Sure, that's what these people want, but that doesn't have anything to do with me just trying to live my life as a normal woman in regular public society, because that's all I have left. I have nothing else but the truth of my living at this point, and I can only go forward from that and hope for the best. And it really, it goes on and on and on. One of the things that people have also mentioned is this whole thing about disorder. Okay, it's listed in the American Psychiatric Association's manual as a disorder. Okay, sexual identity disorder, gender identity disorder. But the one thing that the opposition never, ever mentions publicly, never mentions, they talk about how we're these confused drag queens, predators running around. We don't know we're confused, we're sick in our gender. But they never mention, by the same standards that they're persecuting us with by calling it a disorder, they never mention that that same standard of care listed in that manual recommends only one primary course of resolution. That's to transition in gender. That's the only effective way that this has ever clinically been known to be resolved. And frankly, once people do, we generally become healthier, happier, more productive. This affects the economy. This affects our social structures. This affects the way that we live. I am spiritually, mentally, and physically happier in every aspect of my life, even with the tremendous discrimination and ridicule I face every single day, and am willing to face 100 times more, and would take 1,000 times more just for the price of living in my truth for one day and being honest with myself, everybody that I love, my God, and every person on the planet. There's no price you can pay for living that kind of truth, and people shouldn't be persecuted, prosecuted, discriminated, and ridiculed for it. We cannot help. Why would anyone make this kind of a change with absolutely no social incentive to do so? Thank you.